we also have a question mark about the status of the Never Openweight Championship because its champion was on Raw tonight and has a scheduled title defense November 5th in Carl Anderson.
That is correct. Yeah. I mean, probably the biggest story to come out of tonight, right? Does, you know, this whole thing is very interesting, of course, as we'll go on to discuss. But yeah, most interesting of which is the fact that Carl Anderson is still the Never Openweight Championship. Now, we have to ask, does it indicate some sort of working relationship between WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling?
I would be very surprised if this would mean a working relationship between the two. I would, again, without having any facts out there, I would imagine that it was as simple as Carl was contractually able to do this, and I'll be very curious to see if he ends up doing this date in November.
I suppose I'd be surprised for anybody to burn a bridge with the company at this point in professional wrestling, but especially with Carl Anderson and New Japan Pro Wrestling, you know, of which a company that he seems to have incredible loyalty to. I just don't know if I sense that he would just
and a company too that even under different leadership, like here are two guys that signed contracts and then they were cut. Like this would not be the company I would be placing all my faith into. And you very well may be right. Like perhaps he alerted New Japan he was doing this. Perhaps New Japan doesn't have a problem with this. I mean, maybe they are fine with their champion going on Raw with the promise that he is going to come and do this match in Osaka next month. But, you know, this is designed obviously for a program here. And that event, that November 5th show is the same day as the Saudi Arabia show. And I would think if you're starting off this angle, they're probably going to be booked for Saudi Arabia, you would think. So I don't know if this November 5th show is going to happen. I don't know if we will see Carl Anderson in New Japan again after this. It was certainly the most interesting aspect of Monday's show.
It would be a very I mean, it's interesting either way, isn't it? You know, and I'd feel bad for poor Hikuleo. Maybe they would just make him champion,
or it'll just be a vacant title and they'll put somebody else in that. What does your gut say? Will Carl Anderson drop this title?
Why don't I mean, sure, why not?
Vince McMahon, WWE, not a prayer. There's not a prayer that he's dropping this title. You know, we've seen, you know, many situations like this. Alberto comes to mind when he was still holding a title in Mexico. Yeah, we will see if he does drop this belt. That would certainly tell you it's a very different philosophy on top of WWE if he is able to do this. But a lot of that comes down to what kind of agreement he has reached. But I mean, working with New Japan certainly did not prevent Gallows and Anderson from making separate deals with Impact Wrestling. So obviously they are free to make their deals in the US.
And there are ways to drop titles that I mean, you know, we just saw it with Moxley and GCW that obviously like won't have too much of a negative impact on a guy, you know, on TV.
Judgment Day promo after the break. These segments, they just get a ton of heat now. They run Raw. Balor goes over, forcing Edge to quit, and there was no Edge or Beth on this show. Ripley says that what she did to Beth is only a glimpse of what she can do. And then Dominic goes to speak, and they just try to drown him out. So this seems to be audiences just playing copycat now, where this is what you do when Dominic tries to speak.
Right, but I also think legitimately, like, he's very hateable, isn't he?
I think that is certainly a compelling part of this whole act with him. So he talks about the devastated look on his father's face on Saturday. And then Balor has an ultimatum for AJ Styles. And AJ comes out and he admits that he needs family. So he gets down on one knee and hugs Balor, but he's got the microphone and says, "But I wasn't talking about you." And out come the big LG and Carl Anderson. The crowd's chanting "holy shit," and they attack the Judgment Day. They brawl to the floor, and Gallows uses a chair on Damian Priest. And hopefully they won't believe that Paul Heyman can cost them their jobs again.
Wow. Okay. I totally forgot about
Remember? It wasn't Vince. Yeah. It was Paul Heyman that got rid of them.
That's got to be awkward in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe privately they've kind of
Maybe they realize, you know what? I think Vince had a say in that. I think that it might have been a Vince problem. I don't know if Paul Heyman had that jurisdiction over our careers.
Yeah.
So there you have it. The OC is back.
Oh man, I don't know if I like that name. Like maybe they'll change the name again. First they were the club and then the OC. What were they with Balor? Were they anything in particular?
What, in WWE?
Balor Club. They were Balor Club.
Were they kind of called that?
I think they whatever. Okay, some iteration of it. At this point, if they're working with New Japan, just negotiate with them for the IP. Okay, let them use the damn logo. Let them use all this stuff. Like you danced around it long enough.
But this is it's really interesting given the fact that number one, he is, you have the title defense on November 5th, which I would very much imagine they are going to want this whole program part of the Saudi Arabia show. And you would assume like these two would have been doing the tag league in November.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they were figured into a lot of plans.
Certainly, yeah. So this seemingly, I wonder how early it came together. With all of them. I believe like somebody pointed out how like Gallows in an interview backstage in a New Japan show back in September made some reference to like you'll be surprised at where I show up next. I wonder if it was a reference to this or maybe it was just coincidental. I don't know, but I'd love to know maybe some of the behind the scenes about how long this has been in negotiation. I'll say like, to me, like Gallows and Anderson have really cooled off for me personally. Like I feel like they were kind of exposed as like acts that I don't know if they necessarily hold up on their own, but what I do know is that I think they're great accessories to either a Kenny Omega or a Finn Balor, or in this case, an AJ Styles. And I think extending this AJ Styles Finn Balor feud now to, a faction war essentially between the Judgment Day and the Bullet Club is really interesting, of course, given Balor's, history with Gallows and Anderson themselves. So it's seemingly like kind of Hunter's time to be able to try his own Bullet Club Civil War type of storyline. And I'm curious to see how he does.
Yeah. And how this, like if this is kind of separate from the Ray, Dominic, Edge story, or if there is all of that gets intertwined, because you have these three and then you have Balor, Priest, and Dominic, unless Judgment Day finds their additional members.
Well, Judgment Day are very busy these days, so we'll see.